Where do I even start with today's topic? Originally, I planned to cover today's topic when I was talking about imitation. At the time, I couldn't really pin down what it was that I wanted to say, so I kind of changed the topic a little bit. There's no guarantee that I've pinned it down today either, but we're gonna give it a shot anyway. I'm going to try to be vulnerable and talk about something that I struggle with: identity. Talking about this is hard for me because it's a sort of metacognition, and because identity sits at the core of so many different things. When I think about how I think about myself, it always feels like there's a huge blind spot. I've mentioned in previous Vedas not being able to pick favorites, and this is a part of that. Related to that, whether it's a bad memory or something else, I have a hard time pinning down some of the things that I've experienced, leaving me feeling like I'm not even present in my own life. You know, maybe you can jog my memory about some event that I was at, but sometimes it's like I was there, but I wasn't. Like I was there physically, existentially, but mentally I was not present. And I don't mean in a sense that I was checked out, just that it almost feels like the event never happened. I know that the blind spot isn't as big as I think it is. After all, if there's anybody who knows about me, my behavior, my values, everything, the person who knows the most about it is me. But at the same time, it also feels like this big, intractable, intangible mystery. Although, maybe it's easier to explain with some examples. As an example, take a look at this. Sometimes, this is how I feel. Cheerful, kind of geeky, techie. I have some sort of sense of who I am as a person, my values, all of that kind of stuff. But sometimes, I feel like this. Sort of like a blank slate or a template, someone who's capable of doing anything, or maybe interested in pretty much anything and everything, but as a result, feeling like nothing. Or sometimes I'm like a robot. I am a physical being that exists in the world, but not really someone that's present or conscious. I'm just acting, I'm not really thinking about things. And sometimes it feels like I'm just going through a bunch of pre-programmed responses. Or maybe the me that I am is just an amalgam of different parts I've picked up from other people, like some sort of Locke's socks situation, or the ship of Theseus. There was this really good comic that I remember reading on Twitter that explained this very well illustratively. As you can imagine, I couldn't for the life of me find it when it came time to record this Veda. And while all of those situations describe how I feel about myself and my identity, the one that's probably most common is just this. My brain is just soup. I know that I'm me, but it feels like something is missing or wrong, but not in a way that I can pinpoint it. None of these are entirely accurate, but they give a sense of why I find it so hard thinking about who I am. Also, as I've been learning, part of this is probably the element of my brain is different. That is ADHD. For example, it's pretty common for ADHD folks to be incredibly motivated by novelty, seeing some activity or action take place, then wanting to do it themselves, and then even going to do it, and then also giving up on it almost immediately, or after some length of time because the novelty is worn off. Or in a different example, doing something that no longer brings you pleasure, knowing that you don't want to do it, but being unable to stop because of how dopamine works in the brain. That alone, while complicated, might all be fine, except for the small ways that it impacts the rest of my life. Not in big, earth-shaking ways, but in many small ways, like paper cuts. For example, not knowing myself can feel like I don't know why others like me or hang out with me. It can also mean I feel like I don't have a strong connection with the folks in my life. And this thinking is particularly bad because when I start thinking like this, I can rationalize that folks are always just out of reach because they aren't reaching out to me. Even though, as an adult, I can contact people. I can just say, hey, what's going on? We should hang out. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. And also knowing that sometimes the reason that people don't reach out is because they have their own stuff going on. Not knowing myself can also feel like people are in my life just by chance. And I don't mean in the sense that they've entered my life just by chance, which is true. I mean that they stay in my life just by chance. When I start thinking like this, it also means that I start thinking about how I haven't really seen people like me, or how it feels like I haven't seen people like me. That can make it feel like, it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. Like there's no one out there like me, and that whatever situation I'm experiencing is unique to me. And that can mean that I turn inwards and self-isolate, not quite pushing people away, but not exactly bringing them in either. The biggest one, though, is just the feeling that I'm not enough. that I'm somehow less than others because I don't understand myself as well. The idea that I know all of these people in my life who are important to me that maybe don't have everything figured out, but seem to have a strong sense of who they are as people. The idea that they are out there doing all kinds of cool things that they want to do, and that I'm not, and that I'm not doing enough. I mean, obviously the person that we see is kind of this outer self, and in some cases the performative self, like now. I'm trying to be vulnerable and honest, but I'm also reading from a script, because words are hard. Actually, there was this great scene in Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is likely kind of dating me, but the characters are talking to each other, but they're not themselves per se, they're interacting with different versions of each other. They're saying things like, "This is the me that exists in your mind." And I think it does a really good job of illustrating how there's the inner self, which you know, and the outer self, which other people know, and how there's different outer selves. There's as many versions of you as there are other people, because that's how they perceive you. Anyway, as a result, it's really hard to truly know other people, and especially to know what they're going through. I know that a lot of what I'm going through are examples of cognitive distortions. There are ways that my brain is tricking me, and I hate it. It's awful. Your brain tricks you too. If I think about the examples that I just talked about, there are examples of catastrophizing, where my brain is looking for the worst case scenario and latching onto that. Or personalization, where I blame myself for some outcome disproportionately to whatever happened. Talking about identity, a great example of that is either I know all of me or none of me. There's no in between. Minimizing. Yeah, there's all these good things about me and all these things that I know, but what about all of the things that I don't know? Let's just minimize all the good things and focus on the bad things. Focus on the unknowns. And the worst culprit being emotional reasoning, which is, this feels true, therefore it must be true. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what point I was trying to make. I don't know if there's anything to say other than this is just the problem of being human. This is just a form of existential dread. I don't know. I hope that all made sense. I hope any of that made sense. And thank you for listening. Tomorrow, we're going to do something a little bit more lighthearted because we are going to make a time capsule. There's no guarantee that I've pinned it down today either, but we're going to get it. Today, I'm going to try to be vulnerable and talk about something that I struggle with. No, that was maybe too much. Stop, phone. Go home, you're drunk. Actually, when it comes to this example, there was this fantastic comic that I remember reading on Twitter, so it's obviously gone forever. Great, so I'm unhappy. Great. I don't know who I am. I wish I could go back to college. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am anymore. How do I go back to college? I don't know who I am anymore. I want to go back to my room and sing a message and see a message and dry erase pen on the wall.